I think the most iconic brands in South Africa have had long-term relationships. That's why they're iconic. The challenge is when the suits get involved, the accountants and procurement, and so many procurement situations for multinationals in South Africa, those are predetermined situations. You will have this contract for 3 years, and then it's a repitch. It's an automatic repitch. Sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's 4. It's like being in politics, you know? And the challenge is when the suits get involved and they're trying to squeeze margins, squeeze returns, squeeze spend from the agency, that can have an impact on churn. And I believe that, exactly to your point, the best relationships, the best results are driven from longer term relationships. Brand building can only happen over long periods of time. And that's where so many brands are struggling. They're not investing in the same relationship. Therefore, they are not spending enough time, energy, and investment in building long-term sustainable brand. And that's where so many are suffering.
CXC, that's culture.
Folks, welcome to it. On today's episode, we are hanging out with Mike Sharman. Mike Sharman is Chief Creative Officer at Retroviral, one of the advertising agency in South Africa, baby. Let's get it. Whoop, 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 whoop.
I was about to go, that's the sound of the police.
I think let's just start from the beginning. I think, obviously without wasting any time. So who's Mike? Where are you from? And
who are we really? I mean, that's such a deep question to start out with. Thought you were going to give me something a little bit light. But
no.
Who are we?
Who are we? Yeah.
Just a regular Joburg boy, born and raised.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was pretty lucky growing up. I was an airline I was pretty good. I was pretty lucky growing up. I was an airline brat. My dad flew for SAA. So from a young age, I was traveling around the world, meeting people from different backgrounds, shapes and sizes, and just having a bit of an inquisitive moment in terms of the different people that I constantly met and interacted with. And I think that for me is something that's kind of led the path in terms of being in this crazy advertising world. Always loved cartoons, jingles, ads that were on TV and on cinema when we were kids, like going and whenever there was the latest Disney animation on the big screen, going and watching that several times, the obsession around that, and then just really learning songs, accents, a lot of mimicking kind of work as a kid. And I think that having 2 older sisters, I was the baby in the family. There were always older kids around, so always being the center of entertainment attention. So I think I constantly had to play in this role that I had to adapt and be a chameleon for whatever the audience was.
Yeah, geez. So can you do the pilot voice? Ladies and gents.
No, it's got to sound all like it's got to sound inaudible, right?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's your captain speaking. We're traveling at 30,000 feet. Ladies and gentlemen, seat back in the upright position.
Jeez, man.
Basically, just do your thing.
And that was your dad, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
So I also hear. So you get to travel all around the world, wherever he was going, and geez, man.
And it was amazing. And then I also had a couple tickets a year where I could just go by myself. So as I got older and had the wanderlust, I would be able to pack a backpack and just go.
Jeez.
And I had an aunt and uncle that lived in Northern California. They were their own entrepreneurs in their own space. So I would go and work for them.
And funny enough, I know the story of you going to film school and all of that. You wanted to be an actor guy.
So it was one of those moments, I guess, at high school when you hit a crossroad. What are you going to do next? And my art was my best subject, and languages and humanities, something that I really liked a mix of. I used to do debating, and I used to do some theatre, and I loved playing sport, but I was never like, first team jock style. So I was, a lot of times I just participated in sport because I just loved the experience and loved the camaraderie. And for me, I got to that crossroads where what are you going to do next? And I had a really great, I'm guidance years old. I'm not life orientation years old. So, we had guidance teachers, and the teacher, she said to me, she had a son who he was struggling to decide what he wanted to do. And then he opted for a marketing degree, and then he went and specialized at a AAA or a Vega or one of the ad schools. And I found this marketing comms degree. It was still RAW at the time for the last few years that I was there. And studied a marketing degree so that at least I had a grounding.
Something,
Because parents, and they panic about what are you going to do do
What are you
next?
gonna do?
And are you taking the leap of faith? Is there a degree behind your name?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of fear and trepidation.
Yeah.
And then once I'd completed the paperwork, I said, cool, I've got the
Yeah.
backup. I'm going to
This is
Hollywood.
for you guys. I'm
Yeah.
going to Hollywood.
Yeah, peace.
Yeah, peace. I'm out. Yeah. And then how did that come? How did that work out? You stayed? You came back?
So yeah, so I mean, like I said, I had an aunt and uncle living in Northern California.
Yeah.
They had their own 2 entrepreneurial businesses that they ran.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they had a spare car for a lot of the back and forth work that they were doing
Yeah.
for their respective industries. So I found an acting school online. This was pre-social media, so using
Yeah.
Google, found this acting school, applied for that, had saved up through holiday jobs, doing promotions and telemarketing, and I saved up enough money to go to the acting school and go and live for 6 months.
Sure.
So I ended up borrowing the car from my aunt and uncle, drove down to LA, to
Yeah.
Southern California, and it was just like living in an actual movie
Sure,
experience, you
yeah.
know. And one of the courses I did was a stand-up comedy course, so learned how to write a premise and act
Yeah.
out, which, you know, funnily enough, it's very similar to writing an insight
Yeah.
in a strategy.
Yeah.
So you deliver the premise, the truth, because that's the one thing anybody in a room, in an audience, can nod
Yeah.
their head to. And if you think
Yeah.
about it, when you go to a comedy club, the audience is a perfect example
Yeah.
of what you would be exposed to for like a telco or for a financial services brand.
Yeah.
You're talking to all these different people from all different backgrounds, shapes, sizes, races, creeds, and cultures.
Yeah.
And the best way to get that audience on your side is to tell truths,
Yep.
because that's when everyone nods their head
Yeah.
to what you're saying.
100%.
And then the craft is in the act out and in the funny and in the delivery.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, for any copywriters or any writers in the ad industry itself, watch more comedy, go to live comedy. There's not a lot left anymore, unfortunately, in Joburg.
I was just chatting to one guy, and he was telling me, you know what? I mean, matter of fact, few of our guests actually, they have been telling us about how we don't have a lot of copywriters coming into the industry, which is like, I was like, what? You know, it's a bit of a weird one there.
Yeah.
You know?
And for me, writing is the art, right?
Is
That's
the-
the
it is.
beauty. That's
That's
the
the beauty,
that's the
yeah.
cerebral art.
Yeah, yeah.
Because everybody sees the same picture,
Yeah.
but we don't all interpret words in the same way, or we don't. Our brains don't click into that word, or we don't read the billboard on the highway in the same way. And I think that there's a real art in the articulation of copy in 8 words, 7
Yeah.
words, or slightly more or less. You know.
Yeah. And you've done stand up with Trevor.
Yeah,
Noah.
I mean, that was one of the early claims to fame.
Yeah.
I went to acting school, and then I wrote a one-man show, came
Yeah.
back to South Africa, and I started doing some stand-up just to, I think stage time is the most important
Yeah.
experimentation playground.
Yeah.
You know, you get up on stage, you test out material, sometimes you die on stage and you
Yay.
bomb, other times people will nod and laugh to what you have to say.
Do you know how many times I die here? But you can't see it.
Yeah, exactly. It just gets edited
like,
out.
yeah, edit the
That's
shit
the
out.
beauty of
Yeah.
TV, right? Just
Yeah.
edited.
Yeah.
And one of those events, you know, at the time there was quite a thriving stand-up comedy scene. There was Joe Parker on the far East Rand at, you know, Carnival City,
Yeah.
and then you had the likes of Horror Cafe in Newtown, and then you had Vlismus, and he used to do a
Shoo.
lot of Cool Runnings work.
He's an academic now.
Yeah, geez, he's a reformed academic. I bumped
Yeah.
into him the other day, and he looks very straight-laced, but he's still such a character.
He's still got tattoos, an academic with tattoos. Like, hey.
That's it.
Yeah.
He's an outlier academic. And yeah, I remember one of those first gigs at Horror Cafe, and Trevor was still on YFM. He still had the cornrows. You know, it was as his hockey stick of fame was starting to really swing up.
Jeez, man! Wow, nice, cool stuff. Yeah. So now here you are. Now you are in advertising.
Yeah. My sins, eh?
Yeah, your sins, eh? Jeez, man.
That's it.
Yeah. But I mean, how are you finding it now? I mean, I think having to move around so much, and now here you are, and then I suppose this is now home now. You're not moving. You are here.
Yeah, for now. I mean,
Yeah.
I get itchy feet, and I like to dabble in a few different things.
Yeah.
And I think that's the obsessive nature of creativity, whether
Yeah.
it's words, business, whether it's moving pictures. And you know, like, you go back to this whole concept around motion picture, right? Like, if you think about Disney and Mickey Mouse, like, such an interesting space.
Yeah.
And here we are in a time where now you can make your own motion pictures
Right.
using TikTok or the stuff that's coming out with AI.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that, you know, the real sweet spot is emotion picture, like, because ultimately what is the emotion, how are
Yeah.
you delivering that? And also it comes down to performance, and I think that's where AI is not at that space yet. The performance, your brain can still tell you that something's a little bit off.
Yeah.
And that's why for me, in any kind of story, I'm not a huge production value person.
Yeah.
I'm a performance person, because that's where the emotion comes from. And you can see it in the different takes. When someone really believes they are that character, when they have an emotional connection with the co-star that they are playing in, whether it's a branded content piece or a documentary or a feature film, like that's the thing that makes or break it, or makes or breaks it. Because us as the viewer, we're a lot more accommodating of lower production value since COVID, like people making homemade stuff on
TikTok
various social
and-
channels. Exactly. And I think now we live in a world where continuously the performance matters. And still, as a corollary, the one thing that AI can't replace is the jeopardy and the tension of live sport. Because you can't manufacture that. You can't manufacture the upset. You can't manufacture Liverpool losing to Plymouth Argyle.
No, you can't. Yeah, you can't. Sure. Wow. Yeah. So I think talking about I think what COVID has also bathed with this, which is, I mean, even before, I suppose before, I mean, we have always had TikTok, but I think now it kind of boomed after the whole COVID stuff. I think let's talk a little bit about this thing called creator economy. You know, a lot of people you see people creating content. You just spoke about it now, creating content, influencer marketing and all of that. And I think which also kind of plays a major role now, especially in advertising, where, you know, these kids, some of them are not even kids, I mean, grown-ups doing content and then making money out of that whole thing. Well, first of all, do you work with these guys? Have you worked with these guys, and how do you work with these guys? And what do you think of it? I think in a sense where brands are now, it's a little bit kind of like scary, you know, route, especially with advertising agencies. Some of them are like, yeah, but we don't like these guys. Some of them are like, yeah, we like these guys. So in your case, what do you think about the whole movement?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, we're very fortunate because before social media, the original influencer is the journalist, is the media, it's the channel, right? And nowadays there's just more channels. There's more social posts, there's more social channels, and there's more people who are effectively media channels to reach a specific audience. So initially, when you would have a celebrity for a specific product or service on a billboard, that celebrity gave your brand some kind of kudos, or it gave it an association or a synergy that then you shared some kind of values, right? And I think similarly today with influencers, you have a pocket of so many different types of people that can almost act as a lens or a mirror to the target market that you're trying to attract. The problem, however, comes when brands, they don't think enough about what the implications of that or the repercussions are of working with certain people is. So they don't take enough of an investment into thinking about that. In the past, where you were working with one ambassador, one celebrity, you know, they were a lot less of a risk. Nowadays, if you're not working with the right person, you can actually see yourself fall into a position where it can have an impact on your business if that person says something derogatory or they end up burning bridges with their audience. Because ultimately you become a proxy of their audience or that influencer as the brand. And that's why I think so many more established multinationals have layers and layers of approval process. You have to submit who you want to work with. Their tweets, their Instagrams, their TikToks get analyzed from the last decade, for example. And you get vetted whether you can work with this person or not. For me, like, I love working with comedians. I think it comes back to the space of they understand the delivery, they understand performance. That's why Glenn Beedham and Pam and I have done a lot of work together. I work quite a lot with Donovan Goliath. And I love working with those guys because they understand the elements of that premise into act out. A lot of them shoot their own content. They also understand the timing of the delivery of the content thereof. And I think so many of them really understand what you're trying to achieve, because comedians are smart. They're some of the smartest people in the room. And I think that when you go back to the Trevor Noah example, when he was on the Daily Show, I think he had something like 27 writers working with him on his show. And comedians are open to working in groups. They're much more collaborative. They don't necessarily need to hold onto the material because they are always testing material, trying it out. And if they don't have an audience to bounce off, it doesn't give them anything but an echo chamber to be able to figure out what it is that they're going to do. So I love working with comedians. We send voice notes to each other backwards and forwards. What about this? What about that? And I think in the the early days of 6060, you know, they had the Mendoza track, which it was like,
that,
you know, instead
My
of
son
let's
loves
go,
it. Like,
let's
he
go
loved it.
50-50, got
Yeah.
converted to let's go 6060.
Yeah.
And I think now we're in a position, which I think is really timeous, because Pick and Pay is getting dragged for this Rick Ross, all I do is win, and then Skulk Bezaden notes in it. So there's like this real interesting discourse. And if you think about it, it's not too dissimilar from how Checkers 6060 was communicating in the early days of its product.
Yeah.
The problem is there's almost like a laggard mentality, and then there's also you've spent so much money on an international celebrity.
Yeah.
And I think South Africans, especially now with the current online rhetoric, we've gone into quite a defensive mentality.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting attacked on all fronts. There's a lot of negativity on social media.
Yeah.
And I think it's just bad timing, where Rick Ross was living his best life in Cape Town in
Hey,
December,
man,
getting
yeah.
shot for this commercial.
Yeah.
As it lands, people are like very anti right now.
But now, do you think? I think for me, it's like, I mean, the Pick and Pay shopper doesn't even relate to Rick Ross. I mean, the mama. I mean, even the middle aged, even the young. I mean, it's more hip hoppy and like the lifestyle, the bling bling and whatnot. I mean, Pick and Pay shopper, what now? Is he gonna now, or she's now gonna now ball on a budget?
Yeah.
I said,
And I think that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's all these ideas, they start out at quite an honest space. And then as they get picked apart backwards and forwards, things get diluted to a space that they start veering off strategy. And back to the 6060 example, you know, they had this beautiful jingle around let's go 6060.
yeah.
And then when we worked with them on that, we had these different influencers that then were creating content primarily on TikTok. So the Donovan Goliath example was, hey Donovan, you know, have you ever run out of something, or now you're a new dad? He was a new dad at the time. And I was like, let's bounce the thing. So we started bouncing backwards and forwards. Then eventually we co-wrote this line together, which was like, run out of nappies, my wife's not happy, let's go 6060. So that was him for the new dad. Then we wrote stuff for like the mom. We wrote stuff, things that were relevant into a South African context, that was authentic, right?
Yeah, that is authentic, that is relatable.
Yes.
All I Do Is Win.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful song, relatable. But then again, I think you also think, okay, this song, DJ Khaled and then Rick Ross, how do these things fit in? I mean, okay, I get it. I mean, I see Skulk is what is, I don't know whether it's Biggie or
Biggie Smalls is what they called him.
Biggie Smalls. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, Run DMC, I don't know what the hell they're trying to do. But hey, man, they did what they did, but I think it just didn't land. I mean, did you see what's happening on LinkedIn? I mean, LinkedIn.
I mean, Kai Lunga had a great post.
I saw it.
At the time of this interview, we're doing it live now, is that today Kai posted this kind of analysis of it. And, you know, he makes such valid points around relevance, topicality. He then caveated with saying, you know, like, we have to be brave and bold and make moves. And sometimes we'll be unpopular and we'll do stuff. Overall, he was quite critical of the execution because, exactly like we're saying, it feels like it deviates from strategy. And what are the points? Like, why? He asks so many questions. And in the end, the resolve is like, it's good that you failed because at least you're trying and you're burning bucks and you're spending money on things, but you're experimenting. And I think so many people, you've had so many interesting guests on your show already.
Thank you.
Ahmed in particular, you know, like, huge fan of Tilly. And, you know, for me, like he says a lot of the time, is there's not enough bold decision making, there's not enough bravery, and people are sticking to their lane because you're ticking a box, you're getting your bonus, you're not getting your head chopped off. Metaphorically. But ultimately, that's where we are struggling as an industry, is like, we're struggling to really lean in and hone that voice, and then putting out work that then people can associate with and say, this is fundamentally a South African voice. Because we've lost it a little bit.
Because who are we talking to? We're talking to South Africans at the end of the day. So and now if you bring in international stuff. But anyway, so in our framework, so we have the code, culture code. Is this execution contemporary? And what is the opportunity there? Is it the right opportunity for this whole thing? The demographic as well. Is it the right, are we speaking to the right demographic? And then also the execution of it. Is it relevant at right now? So I think in your view, in your case, I mean, how would you have looked at this thing, and what do you think of the whole Pick and Pay Ross campaign.
Yeah, and I mean, exactly to Kaya's point, on that LinkedIn post, it's like, we never know what the conversations are at an agency and brand level. Like, we're never privy to that.
Yeah.
Most of us who've been in those rooms know how difficult it is just to get the idea over the line before you've even gone the layers of costs and value, and is this thing going to get made? So that's the one thing. Like, this isn't a work bash, right? But I think that ultimately the challenge in this whole setup, exactly like you say, that code framework is so important. And I think that when you guys cut this into mini clips and you share it on all your socials, like, that's the thing that I think is really an exciting checklist, if you will. Because the problem is, contemporary for one marketing manager is not contemporary for what's happening in market right now. Yesterday I spoke on a panel at Gibbs, and what was so great about that, one of the ladies from Halo, she was talking about how when she worked with George from Chicken Licken, he used to immerse himself in the market. He used to go and sit, whether it's in a rural Chicken Licken or an urban Chicken Licken, he would serve customers, he would talk to them, he would ask them, and he would interrogate, like, what is the thing that is making people tick? Are they enjoying the product? Is it something that's resonating with them? And I think that this is the problem with grocery and retail, is that some of these brands have kind of lost their way. They're trying to be all things to all people, and in that framework, they've gotten a little bit lost because this execution might have absolutely slapped like 5 or 6 years ago. But now it feels like the timing's a little bit off, right? And they had no idea that all this discourse was going to happen between South Africa and America and all these different pop cultural moments. So I think the timing for them is unfortunate. And you shoot something in December and you go live now at the end of February, and the world is a completely different place in such a short period of time. And I think that definitely, the discourse has a lot to play. But unfortunately, when you don't move quick enough, you open yourself up to that opportunity. And I think that ultimately there is a little bit of laziness, because I've been in enough marketing meetings and rooms where people are like, we need a white comedian. Skulk. Skulk Bezuidenhout is our guy. And like, I love Skulk, but sometimes like Skulk isn't necessarily right for you and your brand, right?
No.
And I think that's the thing. It's like your D in your code, the demographic is so important, because you have to almost sense check and you have to do a little bit of research, even if it's like a small scale group. What are we thinking? Is Skulk going to fit into this Bicky Smalls joke? Like, is it going to resonate? Is it going to come across as offensive? Like, what are the kinds of thoughts around that? And I think that, in our organization, we're a small team. We're a team of like 20 people. We're a small team. We have got about 20 people. And off the back of that, we ask the questions on WhatsApp. Hey guys, what do you think about this? What do you think about this thing? This thing's trending. Who do you think it appeals to? And the team has the honesty and they have the safe space to be able to say, no, that's going to be too small a niche engagement, or it's going to plug into like enough of a general South African audience that they get that. This is what happened when we worked on the Kreepy Teacher, which was like a spoof of My Octopus Teacher. My Octopus Teacher was quite a specific niche white audience that is watching it on Netflix. And having that safe space where you can say to your staff and your team and say, guys, listen, is this thing way too like Komaki, Cape Town white, or is this something that enough South Africans will know about to give it the scale and the impact that it needs for the parody and for the spoof? And you have those opportunities, you have those honest moments, and then off the back of that you can decide if it's something worth pursuing before you take it to the client. And I think that ultimately that's where the struggle exists within a comms space. We're not communicating enough between our teams and our brands. Our brands aren't invested in us and vice versa enough, because we don't build those trust relationships and those honest moments anymore. I think that's a result of COVID. We live a very kind of superficial relationship with our clients via screens and less personal time. And I think off the back of that, we aren't getting to know the real depth of the problems, the challenges, and the business issues that our clients are facing. So much of our work is ending up being superficial because we're just scratching that strategic surface. We're not going to the depths. What is the business problem, and how can comms act as a layer above that to support business objectives?
And also, could it be that also, I think that the agency and brand, switching agencies as a brand also, could that be a problem? Because I see there's been a lot of brands switching agencies quite frequently. Like, now you are here for 2 years, 3 years, you are out. I mean, shouldn't it be that I think a certain brand stays and grows and with a certain agency for a longer period of time? Because I think it does help it a little bit with understanding. I mean, an agency gets to understand what's your ethos or whatever, what you stand for. You know what I mean, as a brand.
Yes. I think the most iconic brands in South Africa have had long-term relationships. That's why they're iconic.
Yeah.
The challenge is when the suits get involved, the accountants and procurement, and so many procurement situations for multinationals in South Africa, those are predetermined situations. You will have this contract for 3 years, and then it's a repitch. It's an automatic repitch. Sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's 4. It's like being in politics, you know? And the challenge is when the suits get involved and they're trying to squeeze margins, squeeze returns, squeeze spend from the agency, that can have an impact on churn. And I believe that, exactly to your point, the best relationships, the best results are driven from longer term relationships. Brand building can only happen over long periods of time. And that's where so many brands are struggling. They're not investing in the same relationship. Therefore, they are not spending enough time, energy, and investment in building long-term sustainable brand. And that's where so many are suffering.
Yeah, sure. I think let's talk culture and trends. Let's talk trends. I mean, we are culture code. There's no way we can just let you go without talking about the culture, I mean, the culture aspect of it. What is your understanding of culture? I think a lot of the brands talk about how they play in culture, but you see none of that. Or maybe also culture then gets to be a little bit misplaced, you know, in their execution. I spoke about our framework. I think it gets to be a little bit, I mean, misplaced. You know, like, yeah, we are playing in culture, but when you look at it, you're like, no, but you are not. You are actually talking at culture as opposed to like playing in culture.
Well, for me, I think culture is a new buzzword for a lot of agencies.
Yes.
And you've absolutely nailed it there. That phrase, if I had a rand for every time I've heard the phrase in the last 12 months, we play in culture, you know, I'd be a very wealthy man. I wouldn't be sitting on your podcast right now. But I think that, you know, that's the reality. It's a good buzzword and it's a good buzz phrase. We play in culture. For me, culture is something that you don't play in.
No.
It's like boxing. You don't play boxing.
No.
You live culture. You
live.
breathe it. It's oxygen.
Yeah.
And the reality is, not enough of us, whether you are an account manager, account exec, copywriter, creative director, chief creative officer, not enough people are spending enough time being observers and really taking in how the average South African is living. The average South African is struggling. If you spent a day at Bree Street, if you were in the taxi rank, if you were in the taxi with people, living their lives with them, you would hear the conversations, you would see the stuff people are scrolling on their devices, you would see where the challenges exist. People are living hand to mouth, they are purchasing from people around their surroundings, and there's also this fear of community. And I think that we need to come together as individuals and as community and as, you know, greater tribes, because we've lost our humanity a little bit. And I think that so many of us are going through a lot of situations, and you can never be authentic in your delivery of your comms if you don't know what real people are doing. And I think that's where we've been really fortunate. The last 18 months, we've got to work on some real profound projects where you go to where people have come from. You shoot from the space that they were born or they grew up. And that was one of our best projects from last year. Was just before the Paralympics, we sold an idea to Beck, the pens, about Mpumelelo Mhlongo, and has the most incredible story about his mother was serving ice creams at Milky Lane when her water broke. She then gave birth to him and didn't realize that there was spindling on his extremity, so he came out with missing fingers. He had a club foot. That was getting gangrenous if they didn't operate on him. And as he kind of went through his chapters of life, he was almost the perfect example of the difference that one person can make to you. One parent, his mother, one teacher, Mr. Zungu out at Kersney. You know, there was a series of events, but there was always one person that really backed him and supported him. He went on to be a head of house. He had a scholarship to go to UCT. He then became a chemical engineer at Sasol. He's now subsequently moved to Investec. So he's a chemical engineering banker who was the flag bearer at the Paralympics, broke a world record and came back with a gold and a bronze medal. And that story, like, it just epitomized the South African spirit, the hustle culture and the grit, but also it tied in strategically what the brand stands for. And I think too few of us are spending enough time, because we don't have the time, energy, emotional capacity to go back and forwards and do 75 reverts. We stop, We give the client what they want. We stop arguing. The economy is tough. We get the work out there. And I think there's not enough debate. There's not enough trust. There's not enough love and obsession for the work. You've got to sweat for that work.
But now, how do we change that? How do we now get into it and say, okay, guys, wait, let's.
I think we as leaders of agencies and middle management of agencies, we have a responsibility to almost teach giving a shit. You can't teach that. You can't teach passion. And I think even when I sit in interviews with new people, like I'm never concerned about your experience and your paperwork. I don't ever care about that. I've never asked any interviewee, even if they have a degree or a diploma or any form of tertiary. I just want to sit with that person and in my gut, I want to be stirred by the fact that you give a shit.
Sure. So you do give a shit.
Fuck, I give a shit.
That's good, man. I think there's a campaign that you guys just recently did. Do it big. Yeah. So you got like this huge dog in the back of a bakkie. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that was for Auto Trader, and I think it was really interesting because the process that we followed was different from some of the stuff that they've been exposed to in the past. And I think that, the strategy for that was around, there was a real positivity in South Africa. There was the post-election positivity. We looked at actual insights and research from a lot of financial houses. South Africa was the most confident it's been since 2019. And this is quite interesting, right? So like we were at a -9. Of positivity. So that's not very positive. But we jumped up to a -6. So we're almost at a level 0 of positivity. But if it looks at the macro environment in terms of how much pressure we've been under and how much negativity, I also think that there's a false positivity because the two-pot system opened up and a lot of people drew down cash. And like I'm an old guy now, so I have to say things like responsible spending and responsible financial.
No, but I mean, I think these guys are drawing from the two-pot system because, come on, the life is tough though, Mike.
And SARS, SARS knew people wanted money before festive. And that was that for me was the most irresponsible thing from a financial institution that's supposed to be worrying about your future, because that money that's been drawn down, you're never going to make that back in your lifetime, which it makes me sad, as a dad, as a business owner. And I think the official number was something like 1.8 million South Africans drew down from that.
And it's sitting that amount. I think it's sitting on like in billions. Like one of them, it's bigger than some of the JSE listed companies. Like the money that was drawn.
It was like SARS was just sitting at a casino, just basically using one of those machines and just ding, 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 just racking up all this tax cash, right? And off the back of that, there was the sense of like we back. SA is back. We got this, baby. And I think that at the time, like wanting you to do what big meant for you, right? And I think ultimately it's not an irresponsible message. It's not like go do your two pots and draw down the cash and buy a car. The message is just like we can puff our chests out a little bit. We can be a little bit more confident. And big means different things to so many different people, right? Big could be your first job, your first car. It could be your first second-hand car. Big could be, I've got a bigger family. I need a big bakkie. Your big could be, actually, I'm a little bit older, more responsible. I'm going to downsize and I'm going to get a new, smaller vehicle. So big was very much, big is in the eye of the beholder in that kind of construct. And, off the back of AI and the tools, we pitched a concept, a key visual concept that was built in AI, and we showed them this is what we want it to look like. And that for me, I'm a huge proponent of that. Get the show and sell out the way, show the key visual, and client got to a space of what kind of visual they liked from 2 or 3 different concepts. And then we zeroed in on that key visual, and then we built the world around it. The branded content, commercial piece, the outdoor stuff, the digital out of home, the banners, all of that stuff. So that one key visual, it helped us really showcase in our minds what we were wanting to bring to life. And that's where agencies struggle a lot, is like we don't speak the same language as the brand. And now that we have these tools, we can get to the short-circuited moment of showing them more the crazy world that lives inside our head.
And then how do you get that to go viral? I mean, that whole thing, that campaign, I saw it going viral, and I was like, okay, what's happening here?
So I think that was a great partnership with clients.
And I'm not just talking viral. I mean, it was in the news as well. I mean, I saw it in the news. I was like, okay, what's happening? Did you pay for it, or is it?
No, it's all earned. And I think that's kind of our superpower, Like we think about building ideas that are newsworthy because they are made with newsworthiness. And I think that ultimately, you know, it was a great client partnership, great relationship. A lot of these marketplaces, they have internal teams that really understand paid media and performance. And I think it proved the importance of creativity married with performance. And when you put those things together, you get the millions and hundreds of millions of views across various social channels, but then baked with the strategy and the insight of consumer confidence, what the cars are people are looking and viewing at, the fact that the site is up 23% year on year. You've got hard facts that news is interested in working with, because those pieces of information and those stats then can be filtered back into journalists and mainstream media to say, actually, it's not just about the big dog on the back of the bucky. It's actually about the fact that South Africa has a new air of confidence. And that in itself is newsworthy.
Yeah, sure. Beautiful, man.
Thanks.
Jeez, you are doing great stuff, eh?
Trying,
see
man.
you, man.
Trying to be honest. Thank you.
Yeah, and I see you guys at the Louis. You guys are number 5, baby.
Number 5 small.
Number 5, man. No, man. I mean, hey, come on. You. Nonetheless, I gotta give it to you, man. We gotta give it to you here at Culture Code. You already got it anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, man. How's that been? How's the experience? How's the reception? How's
I think back to that comment about 2020 and my Kreepy Teacher, like that was a breakout moment for us. I mean, in this crazy industry, you've got to have a lot of consistency. Like the C in our code is contemporary, but it's also consistent. And you've got to put out consistently good work. And you've got to keep fighting for those ideas that you believe in and that you have a gut feel for. And the fortunate thing about experience in this world is the more stuff you do, the more stuff you attempt, the more you fail, the more you win, the more you realize what's going to work and what's not. And it makes you more confident in the sell. And I think 2020 was a breakout year. The Kreepy Teacher did really well at Luries that year. It got some international shortlists and some international awards as well. But ultimately, it showed the market. We've been doing the same thing consistently since 2010, but now you just recognize it more because we hit the culture moment spot on. And I think the consistency then again of the Checkers 6060 work, the stuff that we've done with Castle Lager, with the Grand Box, the Grannies of the Springboks, the Bic and the Mpumelelo stuff, and then last year when we worked with T&W and Grid and MultiChoice for Showmax, broke the internet with an Eric Cantona stunt that went properly globally viral. Billion plus views, readers, 250 million plus views. It was on every major football site in the world, and everyone was flooding to Showmax to see what is this platform all about and why is the value so good for me to be able to watch every Premier League match for like $60 a month.
Mike, you seem to have nailed the like making it big in terms of like, I think the newsworthiness, I think making it, I mean, what you guys did now with Grid is actually our friend.
Oh, Adam. Adam was on your show already, eh?
No, Adam was, no, Adam was not here. Clint.
Yes, I saw the Clint one.
Clint was here, yeah. So I think you seem to have nailed the whole creating the bars and building, particularly on social media. Like you seem to understand that. How does one build on social media?
So for me, I think I'm fortunate because, I wanted to be a performer, so I understand what the content must look and feel like. And then because of my early experience working in traditional PR, doing stunts, getting stories for Richard Branson onto the news, working in that space. And then I was fortunate enough to have 2 years working in London for LG when they were Fulham's sponsor, and a few other startups and another few established brands here and there. Like I really understand to unlock the newsworthiness from content. Most advertisers just think of advertising as a story that then is going to get put onto a medium or a platform, and then there's going to be money that's put behind this. For me, I've always had to work with brands that haven't had as much budget. They've been challengers, they've been, up and comers. And for me, I've always had to think story and news. And if you can't get onto the news, then it's a failure. It was before you could buy ads on YouTube, before you could buy ads on Facebook. There were only a handful of agencies or brands in the country that could afford buying the ads. So I've always had to come from a place of how do I earn the media on this thing? How do I sweat the asset? And I think that's been one of my superpowers as we've grown Retroviral into what it is now.
And then I see you guys have an AI lab. Is that what you guys? That's what you do there with making.
So the AI lab is like quite a recent development, but for me, I've been experimenting with a few of the different tools over the last couple of years. We've done some stuff in-house, everything from like storyboarding to conceptual kind of key visuals. And I think that we just realized that actually there isn't a threat to humanity and jobs if you use the tools in the right way. More people can do more stuff more efficiently, but with tools comes more clutter, comes more junk, comes more internet noise, right? So it's happened with social media, it's happened with these various channels. There's just more and more noise being created. But ultimately, if you understand the tool and you've got shit-hot creatives working with the tool as an augmentation, that's the thing that's ultimately going to set you apart from your competitors in this world. And I'm a huge proponent of leveraging tools for job creation, not job reduction.
Beautiful, man. And I see, what is your relationship with, I see there's a thing there. Is that your product, that the Find a Doctor? Or
oh, yes, on ProfMed. So my wife, she has an agency called Faith and Fear, Taryn, and one of her clients is ProfMed, and we had a brainstorm session last year around, what are the problems that are facing the professional world? And obviously ProfMed started out as a brand about 60 years ago that was made by doctors for doctors. Over the years, it's evolved into a medical aid platform that effectively looks after anybody with some form of tertiary degree. Like that's their target market, their audience. And the one thing that I kept seeing last year in mainstream media, I think this goes back to the earn thing. What is the stuff that you're seeing, you're hearing, you're feeling? That's why it's important to be present all the time in terms of social issues and also social excitement and entertainment. But as a social issue, last year the stat was 800 South African medical graduates can't be placed. Now that figure's jumped to 1,800. So we had a conversation around, let's create a platform that ultimately connects medical graduates with locum opportunities, and that's what Finder is. FINDR. Obviously there's kind of like a play on words with some of the dating sites, matching, connecting, and ultimately finder.doctor, that's its URL. You can go onto that and you can register, create a profile, and there's thousands of locum opportunities where you can apply to, almost like an Airbnb setup. You can say, I've got a free day on this day, I want to work at this space, or the space can come and find you because you live in an area close to where they are, and say, hey, I need a locum for the next 6 months because I'm going on maternity leave or whatever it may be. And I think that in the last week there have been 500 medical grads that have signed up, which I think is huge because there were 1,800 that were unemployed or and not placed. So for me, I'm always looking at innovative solutions like that can combine tech with creativity with platform.
This is now also developed in-house.
Well, that's through Faith and Fear, through Taryn's agency.
Oh, cool, man. Please get your wife on that.
I will do.
Please.
That's it.
Yeah, because now we're struggling to. Should I say we're struggling or what?
No, we're not
We're not struggling. They don't want. How many times have you invited women?
We've got enough people. It's just that, and we've got enough people to be discerning. Not all the people that are knocking on our door to come onto the show is necessarily the people we want to have on the show. So what people are making a difference, and one of the things we've kind of shot for is the notion that whoever sits in that chair can nominate the next person to sit in that chair.
So maybe
as a woman, because we don't have a lot of women.
But I know what the issue is, right? But I think maybe the
what is the issue? Actually, let's go there. What is the issue? Why are women
we're not talking about this in the interview. That's for another day.
Taryn seems phenomenal.
She really is. She's definitely the brains in the family, and you must get her in the hot seat next.
I'm going to tell her. Tell her to come. Please do that for us.
Definitely. Done deal.
Cool stuff. Thanks, Mike. Okay, here's the thing. So we've seen, a lot of people on social media in particular, and I think people either don't know how to work social media or they work social media in the wrong way. And if you look at people like Elon Musk, Big Trump, and all the other guys. I think. What do you think? Because I know that you really understand how social media works. So what is your take on people going like on social media and going on a rant and all of that? Do you think it's advisable? Because some people go in there to seeking to be relevant. Because I myself sometimes think, I'm not popping. I'm not trending enough. Can I just go out there and be and ranty? And then Kanye West does that very nicely. I might not agree with some of the things that he does, but he does it phenomenally. He will go on a rant and tomorrow drop something on his website. What is the thing there? How does one get it right?
Yeah, I mean, building brands, personal brands in particular on social is an art.
Yeah.
And there are people, like a lot of the lists that you've mentioned, are leveraging controversy to be able to create talkability. And I think that's a really dangerous strategy. You've mentioned Kanye West in particular, and he's burnt so many bridges with the brands that invested him for years and were propping up himself to the tune of $1 billion plus, you know. And I think that's the challenge around being controversial, is that you have to realize that you're going to burn bridges, you're going to lose deals, and you won't get into rooms that previously people may have invited you into. So for me, I'm a better proponent of positioning yourself as an expert and being able to sell those skills off your expertise. And you know, you've mentioned a few names who have been very controversial in the media of late, but if you think back to the period where they were focusing on their skills and showcasing, you know, rockets being landed in a way that's never been achieved in human history, looking at ways in which developments are occurring at autonomous vehicles, at all these various touch points, people who follow you want some form of inspiration. They want to be inspired by what you're putting out there. And you know, in our world of marketing and marketing comms, there's a great way to be able to build a community of people who are really interested in both your voice and the voice of your guests. And I think that it's about finding your niche and doubling down, being consistent, putting out content that people can relate and can leverage off, and just positioning yourself as an eventual thought leader in that space. And I think thought leadership is something that people are desperate for, because we need more leaders, we need more mentors. There's almost like a missing middle, especially in our world of advertising, because a lot of people haven't been mentored from junior stage into middle stage. And it's not just an advertising problem, it's a global middle management problem, is that a lot of people haven't been mentored through a process. And we need more soft skills in the world to help people on their journey to middle management, leadership, and beyond. And we do. In South Africa, we don't have enough mentors that can show us business, engagement with communities, how to be better parents, how to be better dads, you know, like all that kind of stuff. Like, I think we are craving someone who can guide us in a thought leadership space.
But then it means the next generation is not going to know what they're doing. I mean, if we don't have mentors, we need that, yes, tick. But I mean, that's a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, I think we've got, there's a lot of issues, but I think there's like education, there's the system in which people are being churned out. We're just wanting to give people a matric and, you know, tick a box that they finished. And I think we've lost a lot of humanity. And I think that's the one thing that I would love to advocate for. If, you know, I had like a blank check at a government level, like I would love people to go and spend more time with other cultures. In Europe, they do that. Like you can be in Germany and you can get access to going and being on an exchange to go to Switzerland for a few weeks, for example, being part of schools and communities. And I think that if we started at a micro level here, that you were from Tshwane and then, you know, you went to Gqeberha for a student swap and you went and lived there for 6 weeks. Like, it would be so amazing for people to be able to understand one another in a better context if we just had an opportunity to live each other's lived experience.
Sure, beautiful, man. Jeez.
Thanks.
So you are about Ubuntu.
Yeah, but that makes it sound like it's like superficial, you know. And I think the reality is like we have a lot of templates of like best case scenarios. And I think that ultimately there are phrases that are used just to placate people. But I think the reality is, once again, going back to the inquisitive thing or inquiring mind perspective, we don't ask each other enough questions. We don't try and like figure things out because we are always afraid of getting dragged or doxed on social media, or we're afraid of the repercussions of saying something that's going to offend someone else. So we end up just going back into our boxes and not questioning and sticking to the safe and the sameness. And I think that's a huge problem in our country in particular. It's a global problem, but the populism around politics and that rhetoric that's out there, it's forcing people to retreat to their things that they know, because in your brain, stuff that you know is safety. You're not going to get harmed by that.
Jeez, man, beautiful conversation.
Thanks, bro.
Jeez. Thank you, man. Yeah, I was sitting here feeling like, oh, fuck, I'm in class, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, thank you very much, Mike, for joining us. Yeah, jeez, man. I hope you enjoyed your time here as well.
Loved it.
Yeah, you loved it?
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Definitely going to send some more guests once you've got through your backlog, because I know how many guests are waiting to be on the show.
I know. Jeez, man. But yeah, hey, cool stuff. Folks, thank you very much for joining us. Mike Sharman, ladies and gents. Peace.
Peace.
CXC, that's culture.